Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting for Ipswich City Council. Today is the 27th of February 2025. We're at the Council Administration Building. We're commencing at 9:01. I'd like to call attendance, and in the room I can see all councillors bar the Deputy Mayor, but I think she's on Teams. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for confirming that. I'd also like to welcome, we have quite a few people in the public gallery, but of note that we do have some senior executives from the Department of Local Government, Rebecca McAnallen and also Kent Wayne. Thank you very much for joining us, and appreciate all the work that you do across all the 77 councils across Queensland. Thank you. I'll now go into the Welcome to Country, Acknowledgement of Country. So, Ipswich City Council respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners as custodians of the land and waters we share. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging as the keepers of the traditions, customs, cultures and stories of proud people. We're very fortunate that our opening prayer this morning will be with Pastor Tim Sparks. So if I could ask Pastor Tim to come up to the lectern. Thank you. Come through, yes. Thank you, Pastor Tim. I'll get you to introduce yourself and feel free to tell us a bit about your church and the work that you do as you lead us into prayer.
Oh, great. Cool. Thanks, Mayor Teresa. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tim. I pastor the church called Journey Church now. It's just opposite St Andrew's Hospital there. We've been around we're celebrating our 70th year this year as a church in the city. And so that's pretty cool. In terms of what we do in the region, we have a homelessness crisis shelter called Hannah's House. That's been operating since 1982. And so on any given day, we can help around about 13 to 25 young women who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. And so that's something that we do within our community. And so that's us. So if you ever want to check us out, go to journeychurch.co and you're more than welcome to come. I just want to share just a scripture before I pray for our team today. Proverbs 21:1 says, "The king's heart is a stream of water in the hand of the Lord." And I just want to remind, I know that, there's certainly some people here today, people of faith, but I want to remind everyone today, especially our leaders in the room, that, when we put ourselves in a place where we can go, you know what, there is someone bigger who's helping us here. When we allow ourselves and our decisions to be certainly led in the ways of God, and then I really believe that decisions made today, like what the Bible says here, are a stream of living water. And my prayer for all of us today and for the leaders here is that as you communicate, as you lead, as you work with one another, as you discuss programs, processes, all those things, I would ask that would you consider, asking from help on high to help make decisions and work together moving forward. And so that's my prayer for you today. So Lord, I do pray, we give the meeting to you today, Lord. And I ask that as we discuss, as we deliberate, Lord, as we make decisions, I pray, Holy Spirit, that you would be in the room, Lord, that you would be helping guide conversation, Lord, making this city, Lord, a more amazing city. Lord, it is a great place to live. And so I pray that as discussions and decisions are made today, Lord, that your will be done for this place. Lord, that this would be a great place for families. Lord, that it's a growing city. And I just pray for your favor and blessing in Ipswich on the council today as they talk and make decisions. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, Teresa.
Amen. Thank you very much, Pastor Tim. Before we start today, I know we have a lot of people in the public gallery. I just wanted to remind everyone that as the chair, as the mayor of this city, that I have a legal obligation to maintain good order of this meeting. And I just want to remind people that under our meetings procedures policy, item 13, public attendance at meetings, not dissimilar to the Queensland Parliament and the Australian Parliament, but our council, we have the rules that a person who is not a member of local government or a committee must not interrupt or obstruct the proper conduct of a meeting. So that means that no one in the public gallery can heckle or have a go. If that happens, I will ask you to leave, and I ask for you to respect that. The councillors, all of us here, have robust opinions and views, and we're doing our best to represent our community, and I ask that that is respected and that democratic process is respected, just the same as it is in the Queensland Australian Parliament. In fact, you can't even bring your mobile phones into the public gallery there. But yeah, I ask for that to be respected, please. We now move on to apologies and leave of absence, and I have none. Are there any? No? I'll move on to condolences, and I have a condolence motion for Matthew Rennie, OAM. And after I speak, Councillor Madden will also say a few words. Matthew David Rennie, OAM. I would like to record our community's deep sadness on the death of war veteran and lifetime RSL member, Matthew David Rennie, OAM. Matthew was born on the 11th of June 1933, just outside of Sydney. He enlisted in the Australian Army in 1951 after he read about the Battle of Kapyong in the newspaper. Matthew arrived in Japan in 1952, and once he turned 19, he was then sent to Korea, arriving on the 4th of July at Korea Busan. He was then put on a slow train to Buyunshu, and upon arrival was allocated to B Echelon. There was a rocket attack on his first night that Matthew described as very spectacular, a great fireworks display. He said he was very naive and had no idea what was happening. The bloke he was relieving pushed him into a foxhole and told him to pray, so he did. Matthew later joined 7th Platoon, Charlie Company, 3rd Battalion, Royal Australian Regiment, and on the 24th of May 1953, Matthew was shot in the head with a bullet going straight through his helmet and grazing the back of his head. Having fatally shot the enemy soldier, Matthew's best mate, Frank Connolly, set to try and stop the bleeding. He tore open a field dressing with his mouth to bandage up Matthew's head, but in the process his false teeth fell out into the dirt. Frank picked them up and put them back in his mouth, and later he suffered poisoning from the fertiliser in the soil. Matthew told me that it became a long-running joke between the two mates that Matthew had tried to poison him. Matthew was nursed back to health in a field hospital, or a MASH, as it was known at the time. Just 10 days later, he returned to the front line to continue patrolling, eager to be back with his mates. Exactly 1 year later, on the same date he arrived, Matthew departed Korea. It is perhaps usual for a soldier's brave heroics on the battlefield to be some of their greatest acts. But for Matthew, many would argue that it was that is what he did after his active service that cemented him in the hearts of so many in our community. Our country stands upon the dedication and the sacrifices of those who put on the uniform and place their country before their own safety. That meant something to Matthew. He said the men who fought alongside him were all World War II men who looked after him, protected him, and when he was wounded, they were all waiting for him. For the rest of his life, Matthew dedicated himself to paying it forward. Matthew was awarded an OAM in 1993 for services to veterans and their families. By this time, he had belonged to 3 RSL sub-branches, including the Ipswich RSL sub-branch from 1980, which I'm also a member of. He helped fellow veterans with their pensions and welfare. He held poppy services. He was the Monuments and Memorials representative to Ipswich City Council. He did hospital and home visits and was even a bingo caller, raising over $70,000 for veterans. Matthew spearheaded the first Vietnam Veterans Day in Australia in 1971 and was the state president of the Korea South Asia Association for 14 years, and he also started the Vietnam Veterans Association in 1982. Matthew described Korea as the forgotten war, and the scars Matt received in Korea remain both on his body and in his heart. He spoke of 200 charging in when the Chinese were attacking, the horrendous noise of shelling, mortars, machine guns and everything blazing over. He also spoke of the freezing winter that would hit 26 degrees below. He had many stories about the freezing weather. Something that struck in his mind that he said sometimes upset him more than the men that were killed. It was the sight of hundreds of thousands of refugees, mostly women and children that were living in cardboard boxes without proper heating or clothing, and everyone was starving. When Matt closed his eyes, he said he could see a little girl, no more than 6 or 7, with a little baby on her back, begging for food. While Matt was able to set foot on Australian soil again, the war was never really ended for him. He suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder and would have nightmares and panic attacks. It is not surprising that when Matthew discovered that there were 72 veterans lying in unmarked graves at the Ipswich General Cemetery, lost to the system as a result of shell shock, or what we now call mental illness, it really did hit a nerve with Matt. He once said that no one thought to ask why a bloke who'd won a military medal for gallantry ended up in a mental home. Finding out who was in the Australian Imperial Force Memorial section at the cemetery became his final act of service that has left an enduring reminder for generations to come of their sacrifice. It was a labour of love that required dedication and commitment over 2 decades to trawl through original records to try and piece together exactly who was there and what their story was. The project grew well beyond the original 72 soldiers Matthew knew about, and today there are now 342 plaques across 4 walls. Not only are their names etched in bronze, but their stories have been uncovered so they can live on in our history books. Matt was the beloved husband of Margaret, who passed away a day before their 64th wedding anniversary in 2019. He was a much-loved father, grandfather and great-grandfather of Margaret, Lawson, Michelle and their families. He also leaves behind his beloved partner, Joanne Pliushutson, and Matthew's unwavering dedication to veterans, his tireless efforts in research and advocacy, and his passion for ensuring those who served were never forgotten and have left an indelible mark on all who had the privilege of knowing him. He has left a lasting legacy for our community for years to come, and our thoughts are with his family, his friends, and the many who mourn his loss. His funeral will be on at St Mary's, I think next Thursday, the 4th of March. And thanks to Matt Rennie, we will remember them, remember the veterans, and we'll remember him and his family, unless we forget. Councillor Madden, you have approached me to say that you'd like to say a few words.
Thanks, Mayor. I welcome the opportunity to speak to the condolence motion. Matthew David Rennie, OAM, better known as Matt Rennie, was a member of my mother, Gay Madden, nee Maguire's extended Maguire clan. Matt had the good fortune to marry into the Maguire clan by marrying my mother's first cousin, Margaret Maguire. My mother had a phrase she used to describe her close friends. She would call them a good mate. My mother used that phrase sparingly, but she used it often to describe Margaret and Matt. And Mum was well aware that Matt and I shared a common passion to honour the sometimes forgotten World War I diggers, Ipswich diggers. Matt, a Korean veteran, did so by his tireless work that began in 2002 to have 72 unmarked graves for World War I veterans at the Ipswich Cemetery who died of shell shock at the Challoner Centre, which is now the University of Southern Queensland Ipswich campus, finally given a memorial. Now there is a magnificent AIF memorial at the Ipswich Cemetery honouring those 72 diggers. I did so by re-establishing the Woodend Anzac Day service in 1999 after decades of there being no service at the Woodend Honour Stone, with the assistance of St Edmund's Old Boys, St Edmund's College, St Mary's College, St Mary's Primary School and the Ipswich City Council. The Woodend service has become a well-supported service and known for its significant involvement of school children from local schools. Matt once did me the honour of reading the ode at the Woodend service, and he did a fantastic job. At one time, Matt was asked what motivated him to work so tirelessly to get those 72 unmarked graves at the Ipswich Cemetery honoured, and I liked his response. Matt said he was inspired by the men he served with during the Korean War, many of whom were World War II veterans who looked out for him as a young soldier. Valet Matt Rennie, I hope you're ready for the large crowd that will be ready to welcome you at the gates of heaven, not just Margaret and my mum, but also a large group of 72 World War I veterans all ready to shake your hand.
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Madden. I think Councillor Deli, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I had the great honour of working with Matt on the Monuments and Memorials Committee that the council once had, and also the great honour of working with him to establish the memorial that now exists at the Ipswich Cemetery. That was obviously, as we've heard this morning, his great passion was to honour those people. But that day in particular was a highly emotional day because for many decades there lay in unmarked graves men who had served this nation to grant us the freedom we now have, to preserve that for generations to come, and to then have a very fitting memorial established by Matt Rennie was through his passion, and the work through the committee was just one of the highlights I had during my time on that committee. But more importantly, the emotion that was shared on that day was just it put a lot of things in perspective, Mayor. One of the things that I found fascinating about Matt was that it was always easier to say yes to Matt than it was to say no. You couldn't say no. Every concept and idea he had was certainly worthy of not just note but action. To say no would just delay the inevitable. And when it came to the maintenance of those memorials, I don't know another person who could have been able to get the Australian War Graves Commission to add something to their work list. But he was able to, I guess, in the same manner that you can't say no to Matt Rennie, the Australian War Graves Commission committed to looking after that memorial for the future. I'm not sure whether that is still the case, but certainly the fact that he could get them to commit to that is a testament to his tenacity and his passion. I'd like to pass on my thoughts, prayers and condolences to the Rennie family, and again recognise Matt Rennie's efforts locally as a person and a member of this community.
Thank you, Councillor Gianelli. I'll leave it open for anyone else. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, Matt Rennie was a great guy, and for those that saw the Ipswich Anzac Parade last year, it's somewhat ironic, I guess, that his Jeep broke down early in the trip, and it was just sort of stopped there, and a couple of guys got in and pushed it the rest of the journey, and Matt, being Matt, just said, "Oh, just leave us over here," and they said, "No way, mate, you're going." And yeah, somewhat ironic, his last journey was pushed down in his Jeep, but yeah, just good testament of the people of Ipswich supporting, Matt Rennie, I guess, for the last time. So RIP, Matt. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. And the family are offering and inviting anyone who would like to attend the funeral, and it's on Tuesday, the 4th of March at St Mary's. And you can see it on the Ipswich sub-branch, I think RSL's Facebook page as well. Thank you. I now move on to tributes, and there are none. We now move on to item 7, which are presentation of petitions, and we have a petition before us today. This is a petition in regards to some residents of Ripley who have requested that council maintain grassed areas and garden beds on the corner of Carpenter and Trigona Drive, Ripley. So I move that this petition be received and referred to the relevant council department for investigation and a report back to the relevant committee meeting. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Augustine. Normally with petitions we don't have a comment, but I mean if those divisional councils would like to, or we just move it straight to a vote.
I'll have a comment, Mayor. Thanks. I think in recent, I'm glad this has come forward, and a report will investigate this petition. Of late, and I'm my fellow councillor, Councillor Madsen, I'm hoping would agree that the amount of inquiries that have come forward about mowing in Ripley has increased in especially the last month, and I welcome this report and this investigation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. There's nothing else. I put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Okay, it's unanimous in the chambers. Deputy Mayor, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Thank you so much. It's unanimous and carried. Item 8, presentations and deputations, there are none. 9, public participation, there is none. 10, matters of public interest, there are none. So we now move on to item 11, which is the declaration of interest in the matters on the agenda. I'm not aware of any, but does anyone have any declarations of interest on matters on the agenda? No, but if anything comes up, please feel free to put your hand up. Next is item 12, confirmation of minutes. So 12.1 is the confirmation of the minutes. So I'll move that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 28th of January 2025 be confirmed. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Any errors, omissions, amendments? I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. So I can see everyone's hand except for... Oh, thank you, Councillor Kelly. It's unanimous in the chamber. Deputy Mayor, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Thank you so much. Unanimous and carried. 13, there is no mayoral minute. So we come to item 14.1, which is a matter that was laid on the table. So it's a resolution, a notice of motion that was from Councillor Tully. So I'll hand over to you, Councillor Tully, how you'd like this mismanaged.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just move that the matter be taken from the table.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Madden. All those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous in the room. Deputy Mayor, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Thank you, it's unanimous. The matter is now lifted on the table and over to you, Councillor Tully.
I'll move the motion standing in my name.
Okay. Moving the motion. Do I have a seconder? I think Councillor Doyle. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll propose an amendment to substitute the words in that motion that Council's media and corporate communications policy be referred to a future workshop scheduled by the Chief Executive Officer for consideration by all councillors.
Thank you. I'll just check with the seconder of that motion. Are you happy with that? Thank you very much. So the live motion, I'll just check that it's up there so everyone can see. So that is the live motion. That's, Councillor Tully, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. I'm hopeful that that motion today, if carried, will enable all councillors to participate in what we might call a round table discussion to review the council media policy, not just the matters that have been initially referred to, but other issues that councillors may feel need to be reviewed. I'm confident that any changes to the policy if necessary, any of the procedures associated with the policy will ensure an equitable application of the policy and confirm the existing right of the Mayor to be the lead spokesperson on identified major matters, but of all councillors to exercise their rights to speak on any matters that relate to their role as a councillor of the city.
Thank you very much. As a seconder, Councillor Doyle, do you wish to speak to the matter?
No, Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Tully. I think this amended motion is a far better outcome for our council and the community, and certainly I would appreciate an approach where we can work collaboratively on this policy to ensure that any changes are fair and inclusive of all councillors, noting that the Mayor is a councillor. Good policy making doesn't happen on the fly. It needs to be informed by evidence, the views of all stakeholders, relevant expertise, and it must be in accordance with the Local Government Act. It is my hope that a workshop could be the start of this process. I open up for any other discussion. If there's no, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous in the room. Deputy Mayor, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Thank you very much. That's unanimous and carried. We now move on to item 15, which is the reception consideration of committee reports. Now, both myself, the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Madswell had a leave of absence for council matters in Brisbane on the day of the committee, so I would normally hand over to the Chair and ask, but I haven't had the opportunity, so I'll, first of all, I'd like to ask a few questions at some of these, for these reports before we move them. So if I go on to... Pardon me. I'm looking at item 15.1, which is the report of the Infrastructure Planning and Assets Committee. There. And I don't have any...
Excuse me, Chair. Sorry, if I may, can we just have a couple of seconds to bring up, I think for most of us, we won't have the full papers from the committee
Oh, okay.
in our packs today, just...
Oh, sorry. Always
yeah,
have them.
thank you,
Yeah.
sorry.
I guess my only question I was going to ask, I note that there was a matter there was lying on the table, the provisional projects. Was that going to be discussed today, or was that remaining that on the table until the 4th of March workshop?
I understand that you were of the, you were happy for the matter to lay on the table because of your absence from the, from that meeting. It was not deemed appropriate to discuss the matter in your absence and the absence of other councillors who were not present at the time. So that was done as a matter of courtesy, Mayor, and I thought that you were, my understanding was that you were in favour of that.
Yes, I know there was no date on it for laying that on the table. I do note that we had an email from the Manager of Executive Services on the 4th of February, which says that that policy is scheduled for a briefing session on the 4th of March. So I guess I'm just curious, is it going to continue to lay on the table as per...
Well, I understand that meeting is scheduled for the 4th of March, and depending on the outcome of that meeting, it may be lifted from the table.
Thank you so much. In that case, Councillor Tinley, as the chair of the Infrastructure Planning Assets Committee, I'll hand over to you on how you'd like to manage that report.
If there's no further questions, Mayor, I would like to move the Infrastructure Planning and Assets Committee number 2025-01, the 1st of 2025, dated the 18th of February 2025, for reception and adoption.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder for that report? Thank you, Councillor Martin. I'll open up to yourself, Councillor Tinley, as the chair of that meeting.
If I may, I'll just speak to two items, Mayor. Item 3 on the agenda speaks to the Heritage Plan, the Ipswich City Council Heritage Assets. This council is committed to actually undertaking a full new heritage plan for the city for the period of 2025 to 2029. The first part of that being our own assets, the assets that we own and manage. As people would remember that back in the 90s, this council established itself as part of a seasonal showcase to be a heritage city, and that on top of that, we were dedicated to that heritage through the heritage reports that were done at the time or heritage study that was undertaken back in the early 90s. This is taking it to the next level for the future to ensure that we protect our heritage for future generations. And it doesn't just rely on built heritage or the built structures that are historic in our city, but also languages, stories, pictures and the like. So this is a holistic approach to heritage preservation for our city. It will mean through this plan, or this stage 1 of the plan, that it will require amendments, or not so much amendments to our budget, but a new budget line and a plan to develop all of those items of heritage and ensure that we have them properly listed. But they're also an integral part of this is to take this further to include the heritage that exists throughout the city, homes and the like. So I obviously support this plan and commend it to fellow councillors. In relation to item 4, we speak to the communities plan, the Ipswich Communities Plan. That, again, is all about working smarter, not harder, as a city, and ensuring that we combine a lot of the assets that we currently have in this city to get the best outcome for our community. Having a host of and multiple different venues, sporting facilities and that across our city will stretch our budget to the point where we cannot continue to manage it. But to try and strategically place these hubs, if you like, we will get the best out of it and the community will get the best out of their council, better bang for their buck. I again commend that to the council.
Thank you. Councillor Martin's a seconder. Do you wish to speak to the matter?
Sorry, no thanks, me.
Thank you very much. In speaking to the matter, I'd like to speak on item 3, which is the Ipswich Heritage Plan 2025 and 2029. And I want to thank Councillor Doyle and her leadership on this. I think she initiated this work about 2 years ago in council, doing this and seeing what happens in other Queensland councils and councils across Australia as well. And I think it's also timely, as on Monday, Ipswich City Council, well, actually is turning 165. So on the 3rd of March is Ipswich Day, and will be 165. So it's a very timely, given that heritage is really a lived experience, both for First Nations and later people moving here to Ipswich. Not only do we have beautiful heritage buildings, but we also have our ongoing culture. Well, now our community values our heritage, and our new planning scheme will expand the protection of our city's heritage. I'm very pleased to see this Ipswich Heritage Plan before us to complement Council's heritage program, which is recognised as one of the best in Queensland, if not Australia. It's also good to see that the plan references both European and Aboriginal cultural heritage and looks to provide strategies on how both these areas can be researched, recorded and protected. A series of roundtable workshops were held with the Ipswich Heritage Network Group, who are an amazing group of volunteers, as well as councillors and council officers. This report gives us a good overall picture of the opportunities and challenges we face in protecting our heritage and a broader understanding of the direction we need to take to ensure a more cohesive heritage management going forward. I do note, I think on page 48, there's mention that obviously something that council will have to consider. It's something that some other councils do, but there is consideration towards implementing a heritage levy to support heritage conservation and community engagement. So that'll be something that obviously we will do in consultation with the community, but I do note that that is probably the first time that's been suggested to our council. If I speak to item 4, which is the Strengthening Ipswich Communities Plan, really pleased. This is an item that it's a first for our council, and the work commenced about 3 years ago, where we had to really be realistic with the growth and realistic with our future infrastructure and our social needs. I think it's important that we are planning for both our current needs as well as the needs of our community in response to our rapid population growth that is expected over the next 20 years. But probably more importantly, if you look at the figures in Queensland, we know over the next 25 years, the demand for single-person dwellings is going to increase by 40%. So the days of everything being a 4-bedroom house and what that is required is definitely shifting dramatically. So how do we accommodate our families now and into the future is really, really important. This plan allows for us to be able to strategically and effectively plan and allocate resources to meet the needs of our community by outlining the necessary locations and timelines to deliver these really important community hubs. The engagement with our community shows that there is strong support for community hubs that are inclusive, safe, local and equitable. They build community connection, and we need to look at how we can use existing facilities and share resources across organisations, as local governments simply cannot afford to fund these facilities on our own. I open it up for further commentary. Thank you, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would just like to take the opportunity to speak to item 3, the Ipswich Heritage Plan. As both yourself and Councillor Antonelli have mentioned, a big thank you to the staff for such an important piece of work. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time over the last, 4 to 5 years, but certainly since, 2 years ago when we kick-started this rigorous process to update everything. We had, whilst we had that great heritage study that occurred back in the 90s, we did ultimately need to do a lot more work, and we had some very outdated conservation management plans that, it's important for any organisation that they continue to fund programming around those assets. Something I've certainly learned during my time on the Queensland Heritage Council. As my term on the Queensland Heritage Council came to an end late last year, I've been reflecting on that journey and the knowledge I've gained along the way, and it wouldn't have been possible without the amazing staff here at Ipswich City Council. They are so highly regarded both at a state level with Queensland Heritage Council, but amongst other local governments as well. And that was certainly acknowledged. I was delighted to bring the Heritage Council board members out here for a visit. And then obviously at the local government heritage conference held last year, both myself and members of our heritage team were invited to participate in a panel discussion. So that is a testament to your knowledge. But I want to personally thank you for helping me go on that journey with you and teaching me along the way. And I know it was very frustrating at times as I tried to get my head around what we needed to do. So as Councillor Antonelli said, this is only just the beginning. This relates to Ipswich City Council heritage assets, but it's an important piece. We need to lead by example. We own a number of heritage assets. So if we want our residents, our local property owners of heritage doing the right thing, we certainly need to be stepping up. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other commentary? Councillor Doyle, as the mover, do you wish to say anything before we go to the vote?
I thank you and Councillor Doyle for your efforts and particularly your comments this morning. I was unaware that the staff were present with us, but I do thank you very much for your support of the staff who have worked tirelessly on this matter. And yes, we will lead by example. Thank you.
Thank you. I put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous in the chamber. Deputy Mayor, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Thank you so much. We now move on to item 15.2, which is the Finance and Governance Committee. And before we go into that, I have a few questions. I have some questions on item 3, which is the strategic contracting procedures, but also item, I think it's 10, I'll just double check, 10 on the budget amendment. So may I ask for the relevant council officer on the strategic contracting procedures paper, please? Thank you. May I ask you to state your name and your job title, please?
Absolutely. Tanya Howen, Manager of Procurement.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for this paper. I have a few questions. One is, how would you see this different approach, this strategic approach, delivering value for our community?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a number of ways it will. First of all, we will not be the first council to be doing this, so it is a proven approach. Look, it changes the way we work. So at the moment, the way default contracting procedures work, it's very prescriptive. Anything over 200,000 has to go to open market, which means it's 21 days out. So the first thing that it will help us do is respond faster for our community. So things that need urgent attention, whether it be lighting at one of our sporting facilities or anything else that's urgent, to be fair, it means that we can make a strategic decision on how we engage the market and also shorten that time frame if it's applicable. So that's one of the ways. The other is that it's a requirement by the regs to actually produce an annual contracting plan. At the moment, and this is how council and committee sees stuff, is once we get to awarding a contract, it comes here for a resolution. What it will require us to do is look to the future. So at the end of the financial year, as we're doing all of our budgets, we will decide on what we're actually going to go to market for the subsequent financial year. That will be resolved in council and committee. It will be published. So everything over a certain value will go out to our community to say, this is what procurement, this is what we'll be sourcing on goods and services over the next 12 months. So they'll get the visibility. We'll also be able to engage the community and say, this is what's coming. How do we get local interest? How do we generate that? And also we can amalgamate some of our spend. So where we will go and out to market for several things in one financial year, all individually, we can actually draw all of that together to produce a package. That doesn't mean we will always award that package to one, so we're not trying to limit that. We can say, well, we can do in portions, whatever's the best outcome for our suppliers and also council.
Okay. So how will this shift benefit local businesses?
Yeah, so by increasing the amount, so the regulations at the moment say anything 15 to 200 is a quoting process. Anything over 200 has to go to open. We're proposing that we shift that to 500, which means we can tap into our small and medium-sized local suppliers for everything up to 500. and obviously above as well, but then they're only competing in a quote process. So we could decide that there's three suppliers that we go to for everything up to 500. We will build into our process that we must go local.
Okay. Obviously, the last 4 years we've been publishing our forward procurement schedule, which is basically, council's order book. How is this contracting plan, annual contracting plan, different to the forward procurement schedule?
Yeah, look, it's not vastly different. What I would say, it's a force, and you, as council committee, you will have to resolve it. That's part of our regulation. So we must do it. We must get better as a council to do that forward plan and lock it in, and then ultimately report, if that's what's required, report on that to show progress against it.
As you know, one of my great motivators is transparency, so our ratepayers can see how their money is being spent. Will this annual contracting plan improve transparency or not, or keep it the same?
Look, it should improve because as I said, we must do it. We have to do it. It has to be published. And also we'll then open the opportunity and have some supply forums to link in. So part of the struggle that we have is ensuring we are tapping into the local market. It's not that easy sometimes. So, a Google search doesn't show all the options. It's really important for us to be able to say, this is what we're doing. If a supplier in our community says, oh, I can do that, then they're seeing it well in advance of doing it. So then we can say, we'll have a forum on this session, they can ask questions. We ultimately want to make it easier to engage.
How will you market this? So, local businesses are very busy. How are we aiming to reach out to as many local businesses as possible to let them know of this opportunity?
Yeah, look, I think it's all of us. That's a role we all play, whether that's through the conversations that each and every one of you are having with your community. That's also something that we need to do, whether we can, if we get the resolution today, it goes to a public newspaper. So we've drafted to go into the local Ipswich, as well as we've also got drafts to go onto our website. We have a plan to refresh our website as part of this process as well, and make more information available to our community and our suppliers to make it easier for them to engage as well.
Thank you. I'll open up if anyone else has any questions. Ms. Howard. Thank you so much for answering my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could ask the Relevant Council Officer for item 10, the budget amendment. May you please state your name and your job title, please.
Christina Benoya, Acting Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you so much, Ms. Benoya. Just like to ask you a couple of questions. One, on this budget amendment is asking for an increase on something. So could you please outline some of the operational expenses? So in particular, employee expenses. What are the additional expenses that the ratepayers will be paying?
Yep. During the last few months, we've been negotiating our enterprise agreement. So we have landed on a position with that, and so extra expenses we're seeing come through for that now.
And what was that amount for the EBA negotiations?
So that was an additional $1 million that we're seeing come through this financial year for that. We've also had a net increase of 2 FTEs as well to our establishment. And we've also seen an increase in demand for our mowing staff as well. So we've put on an additional 10 FTEs to look after our parks and gardens for the growing season.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you. I also note we have some material and services costs for the Division 4 by-election. What were the costs for the by-election?
The by-election was for, I think the Division 4 councillor had to be re-elected, and so they're the costs relating to that, going out for an election again.
Yeah. And how much was that cost?
That was $400,000.
Thank you very much. I don't have any other questions of Ms. Benoya. Does anyone else have any questions? No, thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Benoya. Thank you. I'll hand over to you, Councillor Tully, as the Chair of the Finance and Governance Committee, to see how you'd like this report managed.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move that the Finance and Governance Committee report number 2025-01 be received and the recommendations contained therein be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Councillor Tully, I'll hand over to you to speak to the matter.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll speak to two items. Firstly, the first one that you raised about the strategic contracting procedures. We did have a lengthy discussion on that in the committee, and I think a lot of the questions were covered there and again today. Yeah, I believe that the committee was satisfied that the strategic contracting procedures offered a better opportunity for a council such as ours, and following what some other councils are doing in relation to contracts. One question that I asked was in relation to ongoing approved contracts, what mechanisms would be used to ensure they're just not ongoing for 5, 10, 15 years without being reviewed. And as was said today, the annual contracting plan does give an opportunity for the committee and then the council to review the process to ensure that is being applied and the contracts are being awarded and reviewed, more importantly, in a way, on a regular basis. So I think this is a golden opportunity for the council to move into a more dynamic and useful practice, rather than the default contracting procedures, which weren't discussed in detail then or today, but the default contracting procedures were regarded as rather restrictive for large councils, particularly for smaller contracts to engage the business community for our city. The other item I'd like to refer to is item 13. That's a report from the Regulation Advisory Committee, which is a new committee or a new advisory committee which has been established to look at various items, including the review of our local laws. This is a report that provides ongoing advice in relation to two approaches. One is in relation to the new town plan, which is moving forward, I think, very quickly now, but to make sure that our local laws and definitions and some of the provisions of our local laws are consistent with the terminology in the new town plan. And that's an enormous amount of work which has been done by the department to ensure that the terminology used is consistent across the town plan and our local laws. The other is the review of our local laws. At the moment we have 6 local laws and 8 subordinate local laws. They are being reviewed on a 3-step process. Firstly, the development of a strategic regulation policy, and we've identified the process which will be used. There'll be an internal process identifying the areas that need to be covered by local laws, which may not currently be covered by local laws, and ones which perhaps no longer required as local laws in our community. That local law would then move ultimately into step 3 with community engagement to ensure that the review of our local laws is consistent with the feedback that we're getting from the community. This approach will probably over the next 18 months we'll see a package of amendments to our local laws. And it's interesting in some of our local laws to, and I might have touched on this previously, but it's worthwhile saying how local laws that aren't reviewed can lead to situations where some of them are out of kilter with current times. When I was first elected, I was always bemused, and these local laws from then, or bylaws as they were called, have since been repealed, but one was it was illegal to let off firecrackers on a public road in the city of Ipswich, which must have been a joyful time for a lot of young people. The other one, which I found quite unusual until it was explained to me, it was an offence under council's bylaws to ring doorbells on houses. And that was in the days when those local laws, I think the bylaws dated back to 1936, where houses were built up right to the frontage of a property, right to the footpath, to the front fence basically. There's some houses in Limestone Street which are actually still there, and the youth of the city used to apparently enjoy with great delight at night going along and ringing, which they could easily do. They didn't even have to step on the property to ring those doorbells. It was probably very difficult to prosecute them, but those local bylaws survived for a long time. The other was anyone who wanted to be a public speaker in a park had to get approval for the Speaker's Corner in the days when it was very popular in Brisbane on Sunday afternoons for people to speak in parks. So that's long gone. So if any of my colleagues still want to revive that and go down to Limestone Park and make some speeches, I'm sure the kids and others having a picnic would be really enthralled by political speeches on a Sunday afternoon. So we are moving forward, and I don't think there's any other unusual local laws that we have now, but the review will ensure that I guess they'll be wiped out if they are no longer appropriate for the city the size of Ipswich.
Thank you, Councillor Tully. Councillor Dawes, the seconder, do you wish to speak to the matter as well?
Just to, I concur with Councillor Tully's comments, and as part of the committee and the working group, I'm really looking forward to deep diving into the local laws. As a fellow lawyer, it's our opportunity to really meet the community's expectations and certainly aid the organisation in delivering and meeting community expectations. Thank you.
Thank you. In speaking to item 3 and 10, I think it's fantastic that Council's looking at more efficient ways to improve our procurement, and it's needed. And this approach of using strategic contracting over default contracting should deliver faster and more efficient processes. I think that I'm willing to see how it will cut the red tape and support our local suppliers better. I'll also be keeping a very close eye on the fact that we do need to at least maintain the current levels of transparency or improve them through the annual contracting plan. I know this is the first step, but I'm looking forward to further discussions on this and how this will be implemented to ensure greater efficiency and greater value for our ratepayers. In particular, Councillor Augustine, as the Chair of Economic Development, I'm very keen for Council to work with you and the Ipswich Chamber and the Greater Springfield Chamber on reaching out to as many local businesses as possible. It's a great opportunity. On item 10, just to highlight obviously the budget amendment and the additional expenses. And I'll just ask for just for greater transparency, I'll just ask the CEO to make sure that that invoice from the ECQ on the Division 4 by-election, if we could attach that to the minutes, that would be great. After this, thank you.
We can do that, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on this paper? No, in that case, Councillor Tully, any final words before we go to the vote?
Yeah, just one word on, thank you for those comments, and from Councillor Doyle. I am aware that some councillors with election expenses billed by the ECQ have challenged the amount. I don't know how successful it might be, but I think we would probably, unless the amounts have been already paid, look at whether or not, for example, there was a by-election and a state election on the same day. So it wouldn't be fair if the council was paying half of the amount when the ECQ would have been responsible for the lion's share of that, establishing polling booths. But so it's just a matter that I say that other councillors that I'm aware of have challenged and sought advice from the ECQ of how the amount that they've been billed was calculated.
I normally would go straight to the vote, but because you've asked the question now, I'll hand over to the CEO on that one.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the Chair, I can assure the Council that in relation to the local government elections held earlier last year, we, like other councils, I was in contact with other CEOs across the local governments in the southeast corner in particular, and we did heavily scrutinise the invoice for the local government elections, which then primed us to ensure that we were absolutely scrutinising the invoice for the by-election for Division 4 as well. So it has been fully scrutinised and accounted for, and the charges are all appropriate. The invoice has been paid. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll move straight into the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. It's unanimous in the chamber. Deputy Mayor, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Thank you very much. I now hand over, it's passed and carried. I now hand over to, now move on to item 15.3, which is the report of the Community and Sport Committee. And I make the request to the chair of that committee, if we could have item 2, the Goodna Cultural Arts Centre activation, as a separate matter. I'd like to vote on that separately if that's possible, Chair. So I'll hand over to you on how to manage that paper.
Well, I'll hand it over to my Deputy Chair who chaired the meeting to...
Sorry, that's right. Yes, I'll hand over to this, Councillor. I understand that you chaired that. Thank you very much. I ask that if item 2 on the Goodna Cultural and Arts Centre activation be removed, so we can vote on things in at least 2 parts.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Madsen. Okay, then I will move that the Community and Sport Committee report of the 18th of February be moved, with the exception of, did you say 2, Mayor?
Item 2.
Item 2 be moved.
Thank you so much. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Antonelli. I'll hand over to yourself, Councillor Augustine, who chaired that meeting.
Okay, thank you. I'll speak to item 4, which is the library branch report. I must say thank you to the officers and any of the staff that contributed to this report, because it was quite in-depth and there was a lot of data in this report. So I know that the libraries, they perform a really important role in the community. I went and borrowed some books just yesterday. And I must say that they do a fantastic job. Very, very personal and very friendly, I must say. But some of the numbers are quite astonishing, I thought. So in just the September holidays, we had 23,000 people visit our library down here. We've got 21,000 active members in our Ipswich library. Redbank Plains, 47,000, just under 48,000 visitors. Redbank Plaza has an average of 3,000 visitors per month. Our Rosewood, so our Division 4 councillors, were very happy that the Rosewood library the insurance work was completed. And Springfield continues to be a very, very busy branch with, can you believe, 287,888 visitors in 2024. So the library staff should be commended. The programs that they offer are just outstanding. So thank you to everyone in our libraries department. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Councillor Augustine. Councillor Angelli, as the seconder, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to speak on item 3, which is the community funding and support allocation status report. And I'd like to highlight that council plays a really important role in the support of the community for a variety of events and projects. I see in the 3 months from October to December, there were 75 applications approved for funding, totalling $238,532. And this funding goes towards things like the Remembrance Day commemorative service at Goodna, an Indigenous sensory garden for children with autism spectrum disorder, and to a wig lounge for cancer patients. People can see the full details of all the funding that is allocated on the Transparency Integrity Hub. I'd also encourage all our community groups to have a look at our website to see if they're eligible for funding. I just want to thank the community development team. They do tremendous work within our community in so many different aspects, and thank you very much for conducting this process in accordance with council's policies, procedures, and just helping our community groups. They really do appreciate the support that you give them. Thank you. Open up for any other discussion. Councillor Madsen.
I just wanted to speak to some of those stats about the Redbank Plains Library. Members of the last council term will remember that former Councillor Ireland and I formed quite a formidable team in pursuing the reinstatement of the original floor plan.
Yes.
That figure there, a 73% increase on visitation pre-refurbishment. That indicates that that's been money well spent and embraced by the community of Redbank Plains. But further to that, I'd like to thank Council's library staff who have embraced that facility and brought new life to it. And it's always pretty moving for me when programs for young children are supplied in a suburb such as Redbank Plains and well attended by the community. And I thank the officers for their commitment to that.
Thank you. I'll open up for any other comments. Councillor Augustine, as the mover of this, do you have any closing comments before we go to the vote?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous in the room. Deputy Mayor, how do you speak? How do you vote?
Affirmative.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the second item there, which is the report, which is the good. It's the recommendation. I'll hand over to yourself, Councillor Augustine, to I guess, move that.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move the item 2 of the Community and Sports report.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Tully. Councillor Augustine, as the mover, would you like to speak to it?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. It's good to see that the renaming of the centre will be the Goodna Community Centre after the flood damage in 2022. Because of the local health and social needs of the area, the surrounding areas, the services that will be offered from the Goodna Community Centre, like Pilates, Zumba, yoga, jazz, and also... No, you're not going, Councillor? No? Okay. Just trying to get some
Challenge accepted.
patronage. And also some, this might entice you, some SNC, do you know SNC? But strength and conditioning? No? Can't get you to take that up either. But with our success of our Redbank Plains and also our Riverview Community Centre, the officers have really, since we've taken them back, they've really worked hard to make those two community centres a success. So I think the Goodna Community Centre is in a strong position to succeed, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Councillor Tully is the seconder. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. One is, of course, the changes in name to reflect the broader use of that facility, which has been used just for athletics and weight training and so on. I think that in itself sends a good message to the community. Additionally, as Councillor Augustine has mentioned, it's a wide range of organisations that have already come forward, and I think that's really important. It's centrally located, yes. 3 years ago, yesterday, it was flooded, but it's still a facility which has really come up. I had an inspection about 3 weeks ago. It is really, along with Councillor Johnnick, it has really come up beautifully. It's a big area. A lot of organisations are able to utilise it, and I think it will become a real focal point in the Goodna community.
Thank you, Councillor Tully. And speaking of this, I've had many discussions with council officers on this one, and also a number of local community groups in Goodna who have expressed an interest in actually running the centre. I would personally have preferred council fully explored all other options before proceeding to take on this centre ourselves, as well as the associated cost and the responsibilities of the centre. I personally think that there would have been benefit to an expression of interest process to at least understand and explore other options open to council and what benefits and challenges they may present, knowing that in particular there were local community groups with significant co-contributions that were prepared to invest in this facility as well. This will be a first for me not to 100% wholeheartedly agree with something that the community development team have put forward. It's a very rare occasion, but I do have a respectful difference of opinion on this. So for that matter, I will be voting against this today. But I do appreciate the incredible amount of work that the community development team have put into this. Thank you, CEO. I'll open up for other discussion. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. That's certainly the first time I've heard that you had those ideas. So that's interesting that they come forward at a council meeting. I just wanted to endorse the process. What I've seen at other centres that we've taken a more active role is rather than a specialised group running the facility, council has been able to play a great role in facilitating all areas of the community to access the centre. And I think that will achieve great results in Goodna, and ultimately will end up with a better access and inclusion of all sort of community groups and providers. Any of those that you're alluding to perhaps could still actually utilise the centre and make bookings and use the space. And yes, well, respectfully trying to take on board what you've said, I guess, without notice, I just wanted to reiterate that our community development officers have done a wonderful job at the other centres, and I have no concerns about the Goodna Community Centre because they will also do that here.
Thank you, Councillor Madsen. In saying that, I had my discussions with Division 2 councils because the facility was in Goodna. We've had discussions. Any other discussion? Any other comments? No? Councillor Wilson, as the mover, do you have anything you'd like
I'll
before we go to the vote?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I do concur with Councillor Madsen. I do spend a lot of time down at the Redbank Plains Community Centre. I've seen it where it was, the transition, and now us coming in and taking over. And I think the team, and I must shout out to a particular officer, Tanya Appleton, who does an amazing job. She really knows the community and she just really knows how to get really good outcomes. So so thank you very much.
Under our procedures, we now go to the vote because that was the closing remarks. So we'll go to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And it's everyone in the chamber except for myself. So Deputy Mayor, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Affirmative. Those against, that would be myself. So the matter is carried. Thank you so much. So we move on to item 15.4, which is the report of the Economic and Cultural Development Committee. I don't have any questions of that, so I'll hand over to the chair of that committee to see how she would like that report managed.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to move that the Economic and Cultural Development report of the 18th of February be moved, with the exception of item 2. So item 2 be moved separately.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Martin. I'll hand over to you, Councillor Augustine, as the chair of that meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to speak on just particularly item 4, the Nicholas Street precinct. There's been a number of... this report was particularly for December, so we had a lot of new openings through that time, and by all accounts are trading very successfully. In particular, the Commonwealth Hotel. Councillor Doyle, myself, Councillor Antonelli and Councillor Martin were down there yesterday, and it's a Wednesday night, and it was and it was night time, and it was quite a thriving. So there's a lot of patronage there. So as well as Hoyts and general public, they've traded really well in that period last year, and the footfall through the precinct was increased with a positive impact on our existing businesses and tenants through the precinct. So since this report was created, Mini Bounce has also opened, so that's really good, and Anytime Fitness is on the way, and I'm very excited about that one. So with a bit of SNC. Thank you, Councillor Antonelli. I know I'm seeing that you're on my thought pattern here. But during December as well, we had the St Nicholas precinct, the Christmas lights. That was, for me, that was sensational. The amount of positive talk in the precinct was just absolutely fantastic. And I must say, on the 18th of December, there was a band that was playing, and it was right up my alley. It was very much an R&B band, and I spent the whole night just listening to that band. So I must say, thank you very much for the team for putting on the St Nicholas Street precinct, the Christmas lights. So thank you very much, everyone. That created a great success in this precinct.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, as the seconder of that motion, do you have any commentary?
No, thanks, Mayor. I concur with Councillor Augustine.
Okay. I open it up for other comments from councillors. Yes, Councillor Doyle?
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with Councillor Augustine's comments. I'm enjoying obviously as chair and deputy chair, we seem to be eating our way and entertaining our way through the precinct. We're keeping a very close eye on all of the new food and entertainment options, and we're having a great time in doing so. But it is, in all seriousness, really, really exciting time. We've been working on this for 5 years, and it was only last night at the Chamber event at the Commonwealth Hotel. I was talking with Chamber members about the Commonwealth Hotel, and I said, it seems like yesterday we were standing in a pile of rubble, and I do have a photo of Councillor Madsen and I and others standing in that rubble at the Commonwealth Hotel. So it is really, really pleasing and rewarding to see the precinct come to life. Our residents have been waiting for this for a very long time, but importantly, our local businesses in Ipswich Central are now seeing the benefits of it, and I love hearing from them, and I'm hearing from them they're delighted by the flow-on effects for them. But also as a community, the safety aspect. I attended a personal appointment on a Sunday night, 7 o'clock, oversharing. I had a massage at the top of Nicholas Street. When I came out at 9 p.m, ordinarily it would be quite dark and you wouldn't ordinarily feel safe, but I felt very safe. There was light, there was patronage, people standing out the front of general public, and equally exiting this building at 7:30 at night just to hear and see the light and noise coming from the Commonwealth Hotel. The precinct team and Safe City assured me, at the beginning of the project, this was one of the benefits, the social or the antisocial behaviour that we may have been experiencing will just simply be dealt with by safety in numbers, people being around, and light emanating from the precinct. So it's actually happening, it's working. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Open up for any other commentary. Councillor Wilson, do you wish to say any closing remarks before we go to vote?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous in the chamber. And Deputy Mayor, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Thank you. It's now 10:13, so I move that we adjourn for 30 minutes and come back at 10:43. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous here. Deputy Mayor, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Thank you very much. See you back at 10:43. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. It's 10:46 a.m. We've just come back from an adjournment for morning tea. Welcome back, and I can see everyone in attendance, and just confirming, Deputy Mayor, that you're still there on Teams.
I am.
Excellent. Thank you. We're now up to item 15.4, item 2, on the report of the Economic and Cultural Development Committee, which is the major community event sponsorship for 2025 Ipswich show. Before I head on, I think there was the council officers report had a recommendation for 30,000, but at the last committee there was 35. So I think there'll be a motion from you, Councillor Augustine, and then I think Councillor Tully's going to do a procedural motion after that to tidy up the current minutes of that committee meeting. So I'll hand over to you, Councillor Augustine.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So I'd just like to move the recommendation, which was that council provide event sponsorship of $35,000, excluding GST, to the Ipswich Show Society for the 2025 Ipswich Show.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Doyle. I'll leave it over to you now, Councillor Augustine, as the mover.
Mayor, just procedurally, could I just propose that the amendment, not to the motion but to the minutes, so that the discussion focuses on the actual recommendation to the council?
I'm happy to do that. Are you okay with that, Councillor Augustine? Yes.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Councillor Tully wishes to speak to matter of the minutes as opposed to the matter here.
Yes, thank you. It's just a bit of an odd situation that's arisen, but I think it can be easily corrected. If councillors look at the top of page 65, it's got recommendation. Remember, the recommendation is usually the officer's recommendation, but it says under that council provide the sponsorship of 30,000. Then Councillor Augustine proposed an amendment to the motion. Well, that was never a motion, as I understand it, that was actually before the committee, and that the actual recommendation from the committee was, as printed below, Councillor Augustine and seconded by Councillor Madden for $35,000. So just to make it, it's just an odd way of wording, but just to simplify it, I think it can easily be corrected by, and I'll formally move that the first 6 lines of that item, starting with the word recommendation on the top and with Ipswich Show on the bottom, they'd be deleted from the minutes, and that then accords exactly. The remainder of it accords exactly with what was actually moved and seconded and carried.
Okay. I'll just check with the CEO, the removal of those 6 lines, and what your views are on that.
Sorry, Chair, comfortable with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that's your procedural motion. Do I have a seconder for that procedural motion? Thank you, Councillor Antonelli. Any other discussion on that, Councillor Tully?
No, that was just on the
those
minutes
6
rather
lines.
than the recommendation itself. Yeah, thank you.
Just not on the matter itself, Councillor Tully, but just on those 6 lines being removed. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, that's my recollection of the meeting, and I think that amendment does create a true and accurate record of what transpired on that morning. No criticism to anybody at all, but it was a tad confusing that morning. But that said, the recommendation that has been moved is a accurate reflection of what occurred in that meeting, yes.
Thank you. Any other comments? In that case, I'll put that procedural motion to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous in the chamber. Deputy Mayor, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Now we'll come back to the matter itself, which is the recommendation which was moved by Councillor Augustine and seconded by Councillor Doyle, is that council provide event sponsorship of $35,000, excluding GS2, to the Ipswich Show Society for the 2025 Ipswich Show. Councillor Augustine, do you wish to speak to that?
Thank you.
If I may, I do have some questions through the chair. So I'm just wondering what time should we ask the questions, after the chair has spoken or beforehand?
Okay. Pardon me, I'll just check, Councillor. Normally, our normal procedure is that we would ask questions of council officers before things are moved and seconded. I'll just check with you, Chair. We've obviously moved and seconded. Are you happy to have questions, or do you wish to speak to the matter first?
No, we can have questions.
Okay. May I ask for the relevant council officer to come to the lectern, please? May you please state your name and your job title?
Good morning, Carly Gregory, Manager of Marketing and Promotions.
Thank you. Councillor Anthony, you wish to ask a question?
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Ms Gregory. I am possibly going to move amendment to the motion that has been put. However, I just thought to ask some questions first. We are now privy to some information through the CEO and your manager, the General Manager of Community, Cultural and Economic Development. So with respect to a possible entering into a possible agreement for extra years. Now, if we were to move a motion today or an amendment today to enter into a partnership agreement to support the Show Society in their endeavours to put on the show for not just this year but next year, would a partnership agreement at this time require any additional paperwork, or would we be very happy to utilise their original application as sufficient for that partnership agreement?
Yeah, I think like we spoke about last meeting, I think Ben had mentioned there's a precedent with community carols having a multi-year agreement. I would say that's a slightly different arrangement. Community carols are completely volunteer run and, you know, they don't have any commercial opportunity to raise money. So it is fundraised for those events, which is why the multi-year was discussed. It was actually a request from those groups. We haven't had a request from the show for a multi-year agreement. As this is event sponsorship, there is still a very clear acquittal process and application. So we would still require the relevant data for any event sponsorship. This is obviously major event, out of event sponsorship, but there is a very clear criteria and process for that money.
Is there not an acquittal style process each year for a partnership agreement?
There is, depending where the money comes out of. Obviously, this is in event sponsorship, different to the community funding that Melissa Dower's team manages. But yes, we could make this happen, yes. We just haven't had any discussions and yeah.
Yeah, understand. Obviously, my initial suggested amendment was to extend the sponsorship for 2 years. The General Manager has come back with the suggestion that we enter a partnership agreement for this year and next year, 2 years. What is the benefit of either?
I suppose it depends on the circumstances. So a partnership, obviously, if it's multi-year, it gives surety of that. Event sponsorship as a pool of funding, though, is a competitive process. So you're taking that money out for future years, so should other events, you know, come. So part of the reason that event sponsorship is set up like it is that there's that equity in the market, that each year there's a pool of funds. It's $150,000 for major event sponsorship. So it is that competitive, you know, process where we require people to put in submissions against the criteria for those funds.
But you wouldn't foresee a year where we would not support the Ipswich show, would you?
Well, historically, that would be true. But, you know, there are some years where we, you know, get to the full amount, you know, so depending where those applications are put in throughout the year, we'd have to come back to council and say, we're at the limit or this would be over budget. That we would always bring that to you, though.
I don't necessarily have any further questions, unless anybody else does.
Thank you so much. Has the idea of a 2-year agreement gone to the Ipswich Show Society board?
I haven't gone to the board with that. We have always had a pre-lodgement meeting with the Show Society. I saw them last week at the ITON event, but we did not discuss this application.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Tully.
Yeah, just to clarify, we've got a motion before the council for $35,000 for this year. If we simply agreed to that today, there's nothing to prevent us entering into discussions or negotiations as determined, like early in the piece, like a year early, as suggested or indicated perhaps by Councillor Antonelli. That might be an easier way rather than whether we've got to give reasons, whether, you know, whatever we've got to do. That's sort of my feeling at the moment.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's a good idea.
Ms Gregory, can I just get you to clarify as well? I'm supportive of a multi-year arrangement to give assurances to any group, but we haven't received that request from the Show Society, so we don't know how much money they may need for next year. Is it correct that certainly the last few years when we've been approving these, the amount they've requested has changed? I remember there was particular
Yeah, they obviously,
increase.
they had their
There was a ride they were
centenary,
getting
what their
from
100-year
Melbourne.
show. So it does change from year to year.
150-year show.
Yeah, 150, sorry, not 100-year show. But yeah, and I would also say the example of the carols, we were in a multi-year agreement and then COVID came, and there were definitely some years that was revisited. You know, sometimes things couldn't go ahead as planned, given the situation that we're in at the time. So, you know, we can come back, but as a rule, yes, it's year by year. Happy to discuss it with the
And
Show
each
Society.
application, the Show Society obviously determine
What
they need and what they're spending it on.
and based
what
on
rides and
programming for the year,
attractions.
based on a review the year prior.
Yeah.
So yes,
And that work hasn't been done for 2026.
absolutely
obviously.
not yet.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions of Ms Gregory? No, thank you so much for that, Ms Gregory.
If I may then move an amendment to the motion, in addition of a recommendation B.
Of course you can.
I would like to, and I obviously haven't circulated this one because this one's just come to mind, particularly through the suggestion from Councillor Tully, that Council begin discussions with the Ipswich Show Society with the intent of entering into a 3-year partnership agreement for the hosting of the Ipswich Show from 2026 onwards.
And you would like that as a recommendation B?
A recommendation B, yes.
Yep.
Sorry, Mayor, through the chair, should it
Sorry,
be?
Councillor Anthony has the right to put forward a motion.
Correct.
Which then we just discussed that particular part, that whether we will allow that amendment, not to the entire amount. It's just will we allow recommendation B in? Okay.
B in, yes. I'm not moving any particular money in relation to it.
So
but just
do we
the
have a
fact that we established some dialogue with the Show Society to enter into a partnership arrangement
I was just
for 3
going
years.
to.
Excuse me. So Councillor Anthony has moved recommendation B, that council begin discussions with the Ipswich Show Society regarding entering into I think it's a 3-year partnership agreement, wasn't it?
Oh, a partnership
Or just a
arrangement. We won't
partnership
establish a
arrangement?
time frame.
Are you happy with the wording there, Councillor Antonelli?
That council begin discussions regarding entering into a partnership arrangement I must admit, I'm trying to take a recommendation that was recommended by the General Manager and modify it to fit, admittedly. So a multi-year partnership. That sounds better. Yeah, a multi-year partnership agreement.
Make sure that comments come through the chair.
Okay. For the hosting of the Ipswich Show, would that be the correct term?
Or just leave it at partnership agreement.
Yep.
Full stop after agreement, maybe.
For the conducting of the Ipswich Show. You have to put the Ipswich Show in there, would you not? It just says Show Society at the moment.
For the Ipswich Show.
For the Ipswich Show, yep. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
So I'll just make sure this is the, Councillor Antonelli, would you like to read out your proposed motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would like to add recommendation B, that council begin discussions with the Ipswich Show Society regarding entering into a multi-year partnership arrangement for the Ipswich Show.
Thank you.
I'm not sure whether that's great English, but I think it's pretty well understood.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Madden has seconded that. So we are debating whether to allow recommendation B to be an amendment. We're not, I just want to be really clear, it will come back to, regardless of this, whether this gets up or not, we will go back to including either just recommendation A or recommendation A and B. So Councillor Antonelli, would you like to speak to why recommendation B should be an amendment? So before that, my apologies. The mover of this was Councillor Augustine, the seconder. I'll just check with Councillor Augustine. Are you happy with that recommendation or not? Or should I put it to the vote?
Yeah, sure.
So you agree with that?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Councillor Doyle, do you agree with this or not, or should it go to the vote?
I think we just take it to the vote.
Okay, thank you. So in that case, Councillor Antonelli, could you please speak to why we should include recommendation B as an amendment, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think we all recognise that the Ipswich show is our major show / festival event in many respects. So the idea of this is to, rather than them relying on funding and an application, a bit of red tape every year to put in an application, that we will always support, that we enter into a long-term or multi-year arrangement, partnership arrangement with them. The show is our premier show. It's actually a major event with respect to the Brisbane Ekka, that a lot of the competitors that attend that event accumulate points so that they can compete at the Brisbane Ekka. So it's not an event that we will to ever turn our back on. And to only approve them funding a little over 2 months out from their event is not helpful to their future planning. And I think that the idea of forming a partnership arrangement with them, like we do other events in this city, things like CMC and the like, that we have a golden opportunity to help them build and plan further into the future. Particularly future planning will be much easier for them. But it'll also be easier for us, Mayor, too, because it's going to reduce red tape, it's going to reduce the amount of time our officers spend assessing and reviewing their application each year, but also it becomes a permanent line item in our budget that we know is there, committed, and it's something we don't have to consider for the future, nor do they. So I think the idea of a multi-year partnership is the best way to move forward with the show. I have spoken with a member of the Show Society who said that they would prefer to have some long-term agreement with council rather than coming cap in hand each year and only being advised a couple of months out from their show.
Thank you. Councillor Madden, as the seconder of that amendment. Would you like to
Yes,
speak to
Mayor,
it?
I'd just like to say a few words. There was a recent poll online about what were the iconic things or events in Ipswich, and I think the Ipswich show is a standout. It's a 3-day event. It draws multi-million dollars into the Ipswich community. And every year we know there's going to be another one next year. So I think this is an ideal situation that we should have a multi-year arrangement, as Councillor Antonelli has suggested. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. I open up for commentary, Councillor Tully.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I agree with the sentiments there, but again, preparing motions on the run can always create difficulties and unintended consequences. I support the principal motion, which would be paragraph A, but I'm worried about the effect that this could have on other community groups who will see this as a precedent. And you might recall just a few minutes ago I said that that we should deal with this year's amount first, that's $35,000, and then consider what options there are. I didn't realise that might be put into a motion which suggests that we're necessarily supportive of it without the detail. I take it that multi means more than 2, so is it 3 years? And I heard the words about the community carols were from the officer, which were in a special sort of category. But even though I think discussions with them the Show Society would be productive, I think it ties us down a little bit in this situation without triggering unintended consequences and a whole host of other organisations seeking the same. It is a standout organisation in the city. It's a standout show and a standout event for the community. I think the CEO, we've had situations like this in the past where there's been discussion within the chamber about an issue and you've taken that on board to initiate meetings or other activity. I think there's probably, and we can gauge the sentiment of the chamber without tying us to a particular motion. I'd be generally supportive of some discussions without tying it down to multiple years. And as you have done, and quite correctly in the past, that we've voted on a particular matter with the opportunity and the suggestion to you to take this matter for whatever the matter was, forward in a way which reflects the general feelings of the committee. I would think, and only 2 or 3 of us have spoken, there'd probably be some merit in having an agreement, but whether that's just a rolling agreement into the second year, and what amount and what stipulations that might be. So it's probably with a degree of reluctance that I wouldn't support this motion or the amendment simply because of the unintended consequences and whether or not this could lead to an avalanche of other community groups seeking the same privilege.
Thank you, Councillor Tully. I think Councillor Augustine had her microphone on.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I didn't have the opportunity to talk to recommendation A because Councillor Antonelli moved straight away. So I just wanted to...
Yeah.
So the item of discussion is recommendation B.
Yeah.
And then we'll go into
Yeah.
the next,
Okay.
whether we go into A or A and B.
Okay, so thank you, Mayor. Just like to add in relation to the proposed recommendation B, I concur with Councillor Tully. Whilst I absolutely agree with what Councillor Antonelli's put forward in principle, multi-year arrangement, whatever that looks like, my concern is that is not the will of the Ipswich Show Society. At present, you have a close working relationship with the President. Councillor Augustine, as chair of this committee, and myself met with the Vice President at the Show Society this week, and this was not raised. So I think we're making a lot of assumptions about what they want. And I guess I'm drawing from past experience here working with the show. The amount they request every year changes depending on the attractions and the activation they're putting on. So we can't determine for them whether or not, you know, it's possible to enter into a multi-year arrangement. They're going to have to forward plan a lot. There'll be a lot of variables, and that amount may change from year to year. But hey, if they are willing to do that, are wanting to do that, I will support that. But right this minute, when we haven't got written instructions or a request from the Show Society, I don't support recommendation B.
Thank you. In speaking to, I'd like to say that Ipswich Show Society and the Ipswich City Council have an excellent relationship, and I think always have. And I think I look around the room, everyone here's got a fantastic relationship with many members and board members as well, because they're very active in our community. It's my understanding that this has not been socialised with any of the office bearers of the Show Society, and out of respect for them, I'm concur with you, Comrade Councillor Tully, on this matter.
Thanks, comrade.
On that. So I think we have an excellent relationship. So I think the intent of what Councillor Tully wants to go for, we could, I think, work with them rather than actually go forward with recommendation B. I'll open up for any other discussion. Councillor Madsen?
Yeah, respect what everyone said. I guess when I'm reading the motion in front of me on the screen, it says begin discussions. Recommendation B doesn't actually endorse a partnership arrangement that hasn't yet been thrashed out. So from what I'm hearing, I think nobody has any issue with discussions occurring. So I'm supportive of the motion unless somebody can provide me an explanation as to what the issue is with having the discussions when it appears of you that it's something that's worthwhile exploring.
Thank you. Just going to Councillor Augustine, as the chair of this committee, do you have anything to say to recommendation B?
I think there's, for me, I'm in two minds. I concur with Councillor Madsen. The word discussion is probably the biggest word there that we're looking at. I think there's also other things we have to take into consideration as well. The greyhounds are leaving as well. What sort of impacts will that have on the Show Society? Are they going to need more money, less money? You know, and if we're going to lock them in, what does this agreement look like? Partnership look like? Is it going to be 35 over 3 years? There's so many variables with this recommendation B. So, yes, I'm a little bit, torn at the moment.
Thank you. I'll just check with the other councillors. Councillor Martin, anyone else who'd like to have any discussion? No? Sorry? Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor, I didn't go to you, sorry.
I don't wish to have any discussion on this, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If there is no other discussion, then the mover of this motion is entitled to a right of reply, and then we'll go to a vote. So, Councillor Antonelli.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And look, just in light of the concerns in relation to that have been raised by Councillors Tully, yourself, and Doyle, I agree wholeheartedly with Jacob's assessment. I was going to reinforce the fact that it is just discussions, but I'm more than happy to have the amendment adjusted to clarify that further to ensure it is just discussions about the possibility of entering into a multi-year partnership. That was the intent. So if the council is in agreement to just adjust that slightly to ensure that it just talks to the possibility of entering into the multi-year partnership.
So, Councillor Antonelli, you're in the right of reply. So we're in a situation where we now have to go to a vote. Unfortunately, it probably should have been raised earlier. And we're getting. So I'll put recommendation B to the vote. Sorry.
I'll just...
Yes, Councillor Tully.
Whatever the outcome, another amendment can be, separate amendment can be moved, but once the right of reply is exercised, it can't be amended.
Okay. Sorry, it can't be amended. So thank you. You've exercised your right of reply. I'll put the matter to the vote.
I'll get the officer to copy that then at least for.
Sorry, you've done your right of reply. We'll go to the vote. Recommendation B. Those for, please raise your hand. And I can see Councillor Madden, Councillor Antonelli, Councillor Madsen have raised their hand. Those against, myself, Councillor Augustine, Councillor Tully, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Martin. Deputy Mayor, how do you vote?
Against this one.
Against this one, thank you. So it's not carried, but thank you very much, everyone, for the discussion. We'll now.
Can I just get clarification on a point of order? While you did extend the opportunity to Councillor Antonelli for a right of reply, I think the substance of his comments were an amendment. So I'm a bit confused as how that transpired, and would just like to share that with the council. I think what he said was raising an amendment, so perhaps that could have been considered.
Thank you. And I guess as the chair, I was very clear that we're going to a right of reply and straight to a vote. And that's what happened. So if we go on to recommendation,
Mayor,
the first recommendation.
Could I just raise with that, the meeting procedures are quite clear that only one amendment can be moved and seconded and considered at a time. And we've had one, we've voted on that. There has been no other amendment moved.
Yes. Thank you. So we're back to the amendment, we're back to the original amendment, which is recommendation A that Councillor Augustine moved and Councillor Doyle seconded, which is, let me just read it on the screen, that council provide event sponsorship of $35,000, excluding GST to Ipswich Show Society for the 25 Ipswich Show. Councillor Augustine, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is, there's a bit of ambiguity around, are we going to talk to them? Aren't we going to talk to them? I think the $35,000 on the table is something tangible. They actually asked for that. And for me, my justification when doing the recommendation was that there's such a iconic, as Councillor Madden said, event to the city. For me, I know buildings are heritage listed. I would list the Show Society as a heritage event for our city. So it'd been 152, I think. It was 150. Yeah, so that's my justification for that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Doyle, as the seconder, do you wish to speak to the motion? Okay, thank you. Speaking to the motion, I see the committee has voted, has recommended to move the support in line with the request from Ipswich Show Society of $35,000, and I'm supportive of that. The Ipswich Show is as popular as ever, and there is a lot of investment ongoing into the showgrounds, currently ensuring the facilities are upgraded and amenities have improved. They received, I think, Shane Newman from the federal government, substantial funding, millions of dollars to upgrade a number of their facilities, which is fantastic. I also know from attending some of their board meetings that they have substantial costs with insurance, with water, and just general infrastructure that each of those bills are hundreds of thousands of dollars. So anything to do to support, this is a tiny contribution to their running costs, and they are very proactive. They run a number of events there to be financially sustainable. You can't be financially sustainable just by running a show once a year when you have all the running costs. So they are very proactive and are huge contributors to our community. So I think this yearly show is vital and cherished in our community, and it should be supported by council to the fullest extent we are able. And I'll open up for other comments. Councillor Tully.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said Councillor Tully then. My apologies. Mayor, just in light of the failed amendment, and I'm not moving another amendment, but it was pretty much supported around the table, the need for council to begin discussions with the Show Society about the possibility of a multi-term funding arrangement. I think, as I've said previously, it is a lay down misere that every time we have a recommendation to support the show, we always do. The major problem for me that I see for the show ultimately is that they only receive that funding mere weeks out from the event, and that is something that needs to be rectified, and perhaps that can be done through the multi-year arrangement. It also reduces red tape for them and for us. And if this were to be potentially lead to other events putting in for multi-year arrangements, I would support that as well. I think that those sorts of things, I think these community groups, and as you said, yes, or as the officer said, they are not necessarily a community group, but they are a not-for-profit organisation that gives back to our community tenfold what they receive. So if we can establish that arrangement, and I ask the CEO to ensure, if she could, that the General Manager take that on board and begin those discussions. And probably the sooner the better, because I'd like to be able to assure the Show Society of our funding earlier than a mere weeks from the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tully.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm supportive of the motion. I think it's appropriate what Councillor Antonelli has said, that it's only, I guess, a few weeks now until the show, and there needs to be some certainty for a large organisation with a substantial donation. What I alluded to before was the sentiment of the meeting in relation to a funding arrangement. I certainly didn't suggest that it be multi-years, like it's in 3 years, and I'm not sure that can be deduced from the various comments that some people didn't even speak to or mention that aspect of it. I would hope that the CEO would take on board the need of the desirability of councillors for a discussion for a funding arrangement, and I think that should be not specified as multi-years. But my interpretation of the word multi is that it's got to be more than 2. Yeah, and there might be other possibilities and other ways of achieving a mutually satisfactory result. So in supporting the motion and with that ancillary comment that I've made and Councillor Antonelli's made, I think we should just leave it as a funding arrangement that we're discussing, and take the discussions from a zero base rather than a starting point that we're offering a 3-year arrangement or even more.
It's worth putting on the record through you, Chair. Very happy to take those discussions forward in line with the sentiment of the council here today. Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you, CEO.
Thank you. Any other comments? No, I mean, it's my understanding that, like I said, the council works very collaboratively with the Show Society. They're the ones who put the application in, and council process it as soon as possible. So whilst we may wish to do it earlier, they may not be able to, and so on. So I've never had a complaint from any of the office bearers about council payments. So, but look, I think that's obviously something that will be discussed. I'll just leave it to Councillor Augustin as the mover for right of reply. If there's no other comments?
No, I'm happy with all the comments.
Then we'll go to the vote.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll put that recommendation to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And it's unanimous in the room. Deputy Mayor, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Thank you very much. Unanimous and carried. Goes to show the passion for the Ipswich show. I now move on to item 15.5, which is the report of the Environment Sustainability Committee on the 18th of February. I have no questions of that particular committee, so I'll hand over to you, Chair. Councillor Madden, how would you like this report managed?
Chair, with regard to the Environment and Sustainability Committee, report, number 202501, dated 18 February 2025. I move that the report be received and the recommendations be adopted.
Thank you, and I have a seconder, Councillor Antonelli. Thank you very much. Councillor Mann, as the chair of that committee, do you wish to speak to the report?
Yes, I'd like to say a few words about some of the items in the report, Mayor. The first one is item 2, the adoption of the Environmental Protection Policy. This is a report concerning the adoption of a draft Environmental Protection Policy. The policy closes on identified governance gap within the organisation regarding internal environmental management and obligations, and will sit alongside the sustainability policy and the natural environment policy to cover all areas of environment and sustainability concern within the remit of the Council. The policy sets the tone for the organisation regarding the consideration and requirements around environmental protection as part of a day-to-day work and clarifies the organisation position to all stakeholders, including the community. Mayor, I'd like to thank the council staff for their careful consideration and the preparation of this policy. I'd also like to talk about item 3, which is the 2024 Sustainable Ipswich Programs. This is a report concerning the 2024 Sustainable Ipswich campaign, highlighting the success of the program, and was delivered between September and November 2024. And Mayor, I'm sure you'll agree with me, this was a wonderful program, particularly the event that was held at Telmore Place. It was a brilliant day, wonderful event, and I'd like to thank the staff for their assistance with that program last year. For those in the gallery that are interested, if you look outside the window as you leave and look down at the roof of the main library, you'll see preparations being made to completely cover that roof with solar panels. So yet another example of the Ipswich City Council trying to be more sustainable in what we do. The final one, Mayor, that I wanted to speak about was item 4, the 2024 Environment Event Recap Report. This is a report concerning a summary of environmental events held during 2024, but also highlighting key events and campaigns delivered across the year, and an overview of the many events planned for 2025. Again, Mayor, I'd like to thank the staff involved in preparing the report and also delivering on the campaigns. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tully, as a seconder, do you wish to speak to the report? No. Councillor Tully?
Just have a query. I'm supportive of the report and the recommendations therein, but it's the item on page 73 of 171 under questions and general business. I'm not sure if it was a question or general business, but it was a matter raised by Councillor Antonelli about the holdover of bin collections on some Mondays. And right at the end of that 4-line statement, it says, will this become a regular occurrence? Could residents please be informed? There's no indication there of what was there a response by an officer, or has that been taken on board by the organisation, or could the chair indicate how that might have been responded to, if at all?
Well, I already got my microphone on. Councillor Tully, I haven't received any further communication with regard to that item as chair.
I'll check with the CEO. So that's the question that was raised by Councillor Antonelli at the committee meeting.
Yeah, my recollection of the committee, we can check the live stream of course as well, is that the General Manager of Environment and Sustainability was at the lectern and provided, I thought, quite a detailed response.
That's correct, CEO.
To the questions, and certainly both the General Manager and I noted the expectation that if there was going to be impacts that residents would be informed, and I believe the General Manager referred to the bin app and seeking to advise residents promptly via our bin app communique. But certainly happy to check my recollection on that, Chair, if necessary.
As opposed to ask the question, do you think that matter's been addressed?
Yeah, my recollection was that my concerns were satisfied, and if I'm able, I can give a very brief rundown of what the outcome of that was from my recollection, and that was that the if Councillor Tully so desires.
Look, no, I'm satisfied even with the brief discussion that it was covered, but could I suggest, for the sake of completeness in the future, that where a matter's been raised and there's an explanation, that we briefly indicate what that was. So just reading that, and I'm not a member of that committee and wasn't at the committee, it's just for the sake of completeness, you know, the officer advised X, Y and Z. Otherwise it just stands on its own without any explanation of it moving forward or being satisfied as to the question that was raised by the councillor.
Sia, would you be able to organise to have, I guess, a brief response to be attached to that?
We can certainly arrange that for the minutes, yes.
You okay with it?
Or, yeah, or if I might add, maybe the record of general business, we need to look at the proper structure on how we do that, so, in general, so. But yes, no, I was satisfied with the responses given on the day.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Or even if that could be a response, that you were, the person that raised the question was satisfied with the response, and that's the end of it. Okay. Thank you so much. So we're still on item 15.5. I'd like to speak to two matters there, item 3 and 4. The Sustainable Ipswich program. Look, it was really great to see the community embrace our Sustainable Ipswich events with more than 7,500 people engaging with the program. There were 34 interactive opportunities over 6 weeks right across Ipswich, with the Ipswich Sustainable Living Festival, story time in the garden at the libraries and the pop-up toy library. And I think Councillor Augustin and I enjoyed the bike with the blender, so we made our own smoothies, riding the bike, power up the smoothies at the festival as well. We celebrated everyday actions in the community can take to ensure Ipswich is clean, green city with a circular economy. I think the workshops, for me, what I really enjoyed quite a few of the workshops on gardening and just the simple approach. Sometimes things seem a bit more complex than they need to be. It was really great to see some really easy things to do around the home to be more sustainable. And item 4, which is the 2024 Environment Event Recap Report. Again, this is a really great campaign delivered across the year with a focus on waterway health and sustainability. Some standouts to me would be having the Youth Sustainability Summit hosted in the council chambers for the first time, and seeing 1,600 native plants at the National Tree Day planting event and 2,000 natives planted for World Rivers Day. It was great to see. I open up for any other comments. No. Councillor Madden is the...
Yeah, just asking if there's any video of you and Councillor Augustine making smoothies with a push bike.
I've got some photos. Actually, I do have videos. Thank you. We have to bring the bike into chambers. Anyway, more seriously, thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor, as the chair, do you have anything to write a reply or to
I don't have anything to add, Mayor.
Thank you very much. In that case, we go to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous and sorry, my apologies. It's unanimous in the chamber. Deputy Mayor, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Thank you so much. It's unanimous and carried. We'll now move on to officers' reports. And the first one is item 16.1. And I'll move that the Chief Executive Officer Organisational Performance Report for the month of January 2025 be received and contents noted. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Doyle. In speaking to this, I see that it's pleasing to see that the native cod back in its waterways, reflecting the city's commitment to healthy river systems. And the Council Safe City program has marked 30 years. So congratulations to Larry Waite and the strong team there. It's been 30 years since the installation of its first public safety cameras. Today we have nearly 400 cameras deterring crime and enhancing community safety. It's wonderful to see that Ipswich has secured $3.8 million from the federal government to fund detailed designs for the expansion of the Ipswich Art Gallery and the redevelopment of the Ipswich Civic Centre. This funding will also include planning for a streetscape refresh of Brisbane Street and the integration of the inner CBD cycle network and additional urban greening initiatives, as well as the Ipswich Cultural Heart. We received the funding for Ipswich Central Heart, the Art, Commerce and Urban Greening Project is currently being funded through Stream 1 of the Australian Government's Urban Precincts and Partnerships Program, and we thank them very much for this much needed funding. Councillor Doyle, as the seconder, do you have any comments on the report?
No, I just concur with your comments. Thank you, Mayor. It's a great report.
Thank you. I open up for comments. Councillor Antilli.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to congratulate Safe City having worked on both sides of the Safe City cameras, it's actually very pleasing to see that it is one of the greatest success stories of our city. In fact, we still get international visitors having a look at our system, as it is one of the world's leading. It's interesting to note, though, before the cameras, we had security dogs patrolling our Ipswich Central area, and it wasn't until a police officer was actually bitten by one of those dogs that yes, I still bear the scar. That the cameras were then introduced. So, so having said that, I can surely attest to the fact that the cameras don't bite. So, no, very pleasing. I would like to congratulate Larry, and Larry has been with the program since day one. So his 30 years with this council coincides with the 30 years of Safe City.
Thank you so much. Any other comments on the report? Yes, Councillor Madden. You haven't been bitten by a dog either, have you?
Maybe. Mayor, the only thing I wanted to say was I'd like to acknowledge that with regard to, I'm very pleased you mentioned the introduction of Mary River cod into the Bremer River system, but it'd be remiss of all of us if we didn't acknowledge that was done by the Somerset and Wivenhoe Fish Stocking Association. That's the second time I've been involved with them in Ipswich. Of course, in Somerset, I've been involved with them dozens of times, but the first time was at Ivan Marsden Field, where we released a number of Mary River cod. But this most recent one was at Armstrong Park at Thurgoona. And the interesting thing on that day, Mayor, was that we didn't just release Mary River cod fingerlings into the Bremer River, which is at Armstrong Park, but there were plastic bags that they had there with water in it, and there were Mary River cod delivered to a wide range of other water systems in what we might call the west of Ipswich. And it was just fantastic. There was about 100 people there. Council staff were there. It was a wonderful day, and I'm looking forward to the next release that the Somerset and Wivenhoe Fish Stocking Association does in Ipswich.
Thank you, Councillor Madden. Any other comments? No, I don't have any other comments in reply, so I put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous in the chambers. Deputy Mayor, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Thank you so much. We move on to item 16.2, which is the Q2 Annual Plan 2024-2025 Quarterly Performance. So I will move that the Q2 Annual Plan 2024-2025 Quarterly Performance Report be received and noted. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Doyle. In speaking to this, it's great to see the Local Housing Action Plan has been completed. It calls for an increase in housing stock through gentle density, emphasising the need for improved public transport, and advocates for investment and inaction from the state and federal governments to deliver affordable and diverse housing options as well. There were 343 arts and cultural activities produced and supported this quarter, with 313 local artists engaged, which I think was a great outcome. And also, Council City Events Plan had more than 91,000 people attend a variety of events, and more than 2 million people visited our city through this period. Quite an achievement from the City Events team, and thank you so much for all they do in that economic development area, as well as boosting the I guess, city pride for us as well. Councillor Doyle, as the seconder, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to call out the Housing Action Plan as well, so really delighted. It's such an important piece of work in the current environment. So, yeah, proud of that work, and thank council officers.
I have any other comments? No other comments? I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous in the chamber. Deputy Mayor, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Thank you so much. It's unanimous and carried. We now move on to item 17, which is a notice of motion from Councillor Madden on welcome to suburb towns and signs. And this is a notice of motion submitted by Councillor Jim Madden concerning welcome to suburb town signs. And Councillor Madden gave notice of his intention to move the following motion at today's meeting. I'll hand over to you, Councillor Madden, to move. I'll let Councillor Madden move it first. Before we've got lots of supporters to second, Councillor Madden. You move the motion. Second, I'll let your division buddy to second that. I'll hand over to you, Councillor Madden, to speak to the matter.
Thanks very much, Mayor. And I'm speaking to the motion as listed in the page 171 of 171 pages in the council agenda. And I'll read those motions out for the benefit of the gallery here. That a report be prepared by council officers for the March Infrastructure Planning and Assets Committee detailing 1, the options for consideration and approval by councillors for a standard welcome to suburb/town signs, in brackets, colours, graphics, dimensions and layouts. 2, details as to the council's plans to replace outdated brown welcome to suburb/town signs that have been in place for many years in the Ipswich suburbs west of Carabin. Now, Mayor, I'll just speak to why it was necessary for me to move this motion. In August 2024, I lodged a service request to have a welcome to Woolkaraka sign replaced at Gregory Street at Woolkaraka. To give you all an idea of why it was needed to be replaced, of the many letters in the word Woolkaraka, only the letters W and U were visible. It also, and just as a matter of interest, it seems Woolkaraka is an Aboriginal word for kookaburra, and the word does sound a little like the bird call of kookaburras. Woolkaraka, Woolkaraka, you know. So, no, that's the end of it. I was only going to do it twice. In early 2025, I was concerned that now bear in mind, I lodged the service request in August 2024. The sign having not been replaced by early 2025, I was concerned and I made some inquiries, and I was informed that the reason for the delay in the sign being replaced was that the council's style guide was being reviewed, and this was taking longer than expected. That surprised me because there'd been no mention in a council meeting of changing style guides, which is a very wide ambit. It's what's at the bottom of emails. It's not just signs. But I received good news that in March 2025, I should say that in March 2025, I lodged a further service request that one of the signs in what was previously Division 4 be replaced. These signs are quite different to the signs in the rest of Ipswich. These signs are unique. They are smaller than the other Ipswich signs and they have a brown background. The standard Ipswich suburb signs, we've all driven past them hundreds of times. They're dark green, lime green and white with a landscape of the city centre in a view of the city on the sign. Now, the significance of green and white is green and white are the traditional sporting colours of Ipswich, and that's why that sign was predominantly green. Finally, in mid-March 2025, I was informed that the new Welcome to Woolkaraka sign had been replaced, and I went out and had a look, but I thought I'd see the traditional Ipswich sign. What I saw was completely different. It was simply a grey background with black printing. The only image on it was the council image, which was a significant departure from the standard Ipswich signs. I had been advised by council staff that while the Department of Transport and Main Roads does control the shape of the sign, council has complete control over graphics and colours. So certainly the grey background with a black wording was nothing to do with the requirements of TMR. And I've decided to bring this motion to ensure councillors have a say in the design of our welcome to suburb signs and determine whether we should just stick with the standard sign. I also want to see those brown welcome signs in the western suburbs that have been used for many years, and many of them you can't read them because they're so deteriorated, be replaced with the standard Ipswich sign, which is in every other suburb in Ipswich, not just the western suburbs. And Mayor, that's the reason I brought this motion to this meeting today.
Thank you very much, Councillor Madden. Councillor Martin's the seconder. Do you wish to speak to it as well?
Yes, I'd like to concur with my learned colleague. I also would like to... I'm serious there, Paul. Woolkaraka certainly has more of a ring than Woo Woo. So I would like the original name to go back to the suburb, as he said. But I did have a number of complaints by people that said the new sign was somewhat underwhelming. And I would also just like to concur that I do like seeing the cityscape, particularly the post office, and also the colour green, as Councillor Madden alluded to with our sporting colours and tradition. So I'd like to see the old style reinstated, or if we are going to look at new style guide, that certainly come before council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lee. Oh, sorry, I think it was... Who was first? So I thought I saw Councillor Lee first.
No worries, my apologies. Look, I do recall last week when Councillor Madden presented this through the Infrastructure Planning and Assets Committee, and it was recommended that it be a notice of motion here today, and I fully support it. As Councillor Madden alluded to, there is guidelines that cannot be avoided from Department of Transport and Main Roads that we must follow, but the surrounds of that sign are left to us as a council to design, and as Councillor Martin alluded to, the grey was sadly underwhelming. These signs are not just the entry statements to our suburbs, but they are also in many ways a sign of our city and what we stand for and what we want to create. So they do have a tourism element to them as well. So if we do provide an underwhelming look, we're basically saying that this is an underwhelming suburb. So I think we do need to come up with something that does stand out and give our suburbs, many of which are historic, and towns historic, the type of promotion they deserve.
Thank you. Councillor Tully?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'm supportive of this motion and the reasons that have been enunciated. And that style manual or guide, I think we probably need to look at other things that might have just slipped through, if I use that word, and I don't use it in an improper sort of way, but to ensure that council is aware of how we're presenting ourselves to the broader community. Just in relation to the brown and white signs, which is, I think, from Walloon to the west, the history of that was from Caribou.
Caribou West.
Yeah, and Councillor Polke, who was a Moretonshire councillor up until 1995 and became an Ipswich councillor in 1995, he had this passion for still wanting to retain the identity basically of the Moretonshire, and those signs variously have a population, which is often underwhelming in some of the tiny suburbs, and also the height above sea level on them, and they're faded. But I think it's really an opportunity. Most of those have faded. They need to be replaced, and I think we should look at unifying the city in signage so that it's all that green on white and the current sort of proposal. I know the motion is not saying what it actually would be, but I think what you've said, we know where it's all heading, and I'm sort of very supportive of that.
Thank you. Can I just ask the CEO one thing? We've asked for this to come to the March Infrastructure Planning and Assets Committee, noting timeframes for Secretariat and cut-off dates. Will the organisation be able to, noting that the date for that one is... Is that the 18th? So that will council have enough time to, if it's out 18th, I'm sure you probably have to see it a week or two before, which probably only gives the organisation a week or something to get it together.
I'm being advised, Chair, advised that we would be able to do that.
Fantastic.
We'll certainly, outline in the report if we're not able to, noting that the second recommendation there, or number 2, is details as to the council plans. So, yeah, we'll do our best. We can certainly bring a report forward, and if we can satisfy both, we certainly will.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other commentary from anyone?
Yes, I'll be the last speaker.
I haven't spoken yet, so I was going to
That's
speak.
right. Yeah, that's
Any
right.
other commentary? No? I'll be supporting this. I think it's great. I think city imaging, our branding and how we welcome people is really important. It's a time to refresh. We'll be having a lot more visitors coming here in the lead up to the games, and more and more people will be coming to South East Queensland, so I think it's an ideal time. And thank you for your diligence, Councillor Madden, in picking this up and carrying it through to the council meeting. Thank you. I'll hand over to Councillor Madden. So is there any other commentary? I'll have to Councillor Madden for the right of reply and go to the vote.
Mayor, this is more for the gallery just to understand about council procedures. What I've done now is simply ask for council officers to prepare a report that will be presented to the next committee meeting to make a decision as to signage, and that decision will then go to the next council meeting, ordinary council meeting like we're doing today. So for those that are interested in this topic, you'll be able to watch it on YouTube, the next committee meeting, which I gather is the 18th of March.
It's the 18th of March.
18th of March. The only other thing I wanted to mention, Mayor, was, you right there, gentlemen? The only other thing I wanted to mention, Mayor, was that I'd appreciate it if in the report the council officers could include the old style guide and the new style guide and indicate what things have been changed, which isn't a big issue. I could do it myself if you gave me the two.
Yeah. We'll let the council officers do the operational.
Yeah.
Would that be possible, CEO?
Certainly the style guide is a significant size document, but yeah, we can certainly work to do that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. We put the matter to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous in the room.
Thanks,
Deputy Mayor, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Thank you. 18, any questions on notice? No. Before we close, I just want to again thank the senior executives from the Department of Local Government, Water and Volunteers who attended to the entire meeting. So thank you, Rebecca McAnallen, and also Kent Wayne for coming out. You've been out here before. Really appreciate your diligence, and thank you so much. And I'll close the meeting at 11:47. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Isn't that interesting about